Thank you very much, sir. And yes, I'm speaking to you from the Irish Parliament, where we have just had a debate on this issue. And ironically, we had a debate this time last week. And this time last week, we were commenting on the fact that 5,000 people were then reported to have been killed by Israeli airstrikes on Gaza. This week, the figure is well over 10,000. And I think it is important that we reflect on that for a moment. More people have been killed in a single week than were killed in the entire conflict in the north of Ireland, which lasted for almost 30 years. More people were killed by Israel in 7 days than were killed by all actors in the conflict in the north of Ireland over 3 decades. So the scale of what we are seeing in Gaza is incomprehensible to many of us. Of those who have been killed by Israel, as Mr. Moran has said, over 4,000 have been children, over 600 have been elderly people, almost 3,000 of them have been adult women, and it's continuing. And the world is continuing to allow it to happen. There are estimates that there are 2,800 Palestinian civilians currently under rubble, including 1,300 children. And I say estimates because we cannot know the precise numbers, because the bombardment is continuing and because of fuel shortages and communication difficulties arising from the Israeli siege of Gaza. My fundamental objection is that virtually every single Western leader that has commented on this matter has begun with the words, Israel has the right, and it flows from there. And I think it is very important now that the international community makes it clear that Israel does not have the right to engage in ferocious, aggressive assault against innocent civilian population. It doesn't, and Israel does not have the right to forcibly displace over 1.5 million people. Israel, and I can't believe that this even needs to be said, but Israel does not have the right to target and bomb hospitals, to bomb schools, to bomb mosques. And Israel doesn't have the right, nobody has the right to destroy refugee camps, killing entire families. These are rights that no one has. Not Hamas, not Russia, and not Israel. And we were all outraged by the attacks on Israeli civilians last month, and our calls for ceasefires include a call on Hamas, and we repeat our call for all hostages to be immediately released. But if the outrage and condemnation of killing of an innocent Israeli child is not matched by equal outrage and condemnation at the killing of an innocent Palestinian child, then the entire basis of international law is cut to shreds. If international and world leaders stand silent when 90 UNRWA staff are killed by Israel, when 192 healthcare personnel are killed by Israel, when 36 civil defense personnel are killed by Israel, when 47 journalists are killed by Israel, where does the authority to ever again point the finger at other hostile, aggressive action in another part of the world? I'm proud to say that Ireland, united politically, has called for a ceasefire, and that is the right demand. And unfortunately, and it gives me no joy to say this, we're in a minority of EU states in that regard. And I would say shame on those who have refused to back this most basic of humanitarian calls. But the positive, if there is a positive, is that we are clearly within a majority of humanity. The UN General Assembly has overwhelmingly adopted a resolution calling for ceasefires. And we know, of course, that Israel has ignored that call. And if anything, Israel has intensified its indiscriminate and illegal actions. And apart from the horror that we are seeing unfold in Gaza, the ongoing Israeli assaults on the West Bank exposes to me the lie that this is a war against Hamas. This is a war that is aimed at finally destroying the Palestinian people. We know that the Israeli Prime Minister has indicated that Israel intends to occupy Gaza. So the natural questions that flow from debates like this is, what are we going to do about it? The calls for ceasefires must intensify. We must repeat that demand at every single opportunity. But we also need to take political action. There needs to be economic, political, and diplomatic response internationally, because if we don't, then the inference is clear. If we don't take action against these blatant breaches of international law, well, then what we're saying is that, in fact, our outrage at the killing of an Israeli child isn't matched by our outrage at the killing of a Palestinian child. And I have huge concern as to what that means for international law and for the UN Charter if we allow that to become the new standard.